U.S. Supreme Court extends border restrictions just before they were set to end. Welcome to Eagle News Channel. The El Paso, Texas briefing, a coalition of Republican attorneys general from 19 states asked the United States Supreme Court at the very last minute to extend pandemic border limitations known as Title 42. The court granted their request and allowed those limits to remain in place, at least for the time being. The court has requested a response from the Biden administration no later than Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, as stated in an order that was signed by Justice John Roberts. The Republican attorneys general who argued that removing the limits will likely lead to an increase in the number of people entering the country illegally across the southern border had been successful in their argument. The limitations, which were imposed for the first time by the Trump administration in March of 2020, were supposed to be lifted on Wednesday at midnight. Immigrant advocates have long argued that Title 42 was intended to block access to asylum protections under the pretense of protecting public health during the worst parts of the pandemic. The delay is another setback for immigrant advocates, who have argued that Title 42 was intended to block access to asylum protections. In the meantime, the city of El Paso, which is located on the border, has experienced the arrival of thousands of migrants during the past several days. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser held a press conference on Monday evening, when he stated that shelters in Juarez, Mexico are at capacity, and that he estimates that there are 20,000 migrants in that city waiting to cross into El Paso. The city is continuing to go forward with emergency planning, including the establishment of an operations center, notwithstanding the stay. The Department of Homeland Security issued the following statement on Monday. As required by the Supreme Court's administrative stay order, the Title 42 public health order will remain in effect at this time, and individuals who attempt to enter the United States unlawfully will continue to be expelled to Mexico. Citation needed. As required by the Supreme Court's administrative stay order, the Title 42 public health order will remain in effect at this time, and following that, the statement urged members of Congress to give the money that the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has asked for border security and to advance the comprehensive immigration policies that President Biden recommended on his first day in office. The decision to determine that the Title 42 limits are invalid was made by Federal District Judge Emmett Sullivan last month, and the administration of Vice President Joe Biden was ordered to halt implementing the policy. The court, however, decided to delay his own ruling in order to give the Biden administration more time to prepare. The federal government and local governments in border cities from Reynosa, Mexico to Tijuana, Mexico have been preparing for an inflow of migrants who have been waiting in those regions. Although officials say that no final decisions have been made, it has been reported that the administration of Vice President Joe Biden has been exploring severe new restrictions to the access to asylum. When the Title 42 restrictions were implemented more than 2 years ago under the administration of former President Trump, immigration authorities used the policy to swiftly expel nearly all migrants they encountered, without giving those migrants a chance to ask for asylum protection or other protections under U.S. law. This was done in violation of the Title 42 restrictions, which had been in place since the Obama administration. Unaccompanied migrant children were exempted from the program shortly after the Biden administration took office and began implementing it. Additionally, it has made it possible for many immigrant families to apply for asylum in the United States. Despite this, the administration continued to enforce Title 42 for more than a year, and they justified it in court as being required to stop the spread of COVID-19. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, said in April of this year that it will act to remove the Title 42 restrictions since they were no longer required to protect public health and because they were deemed no longer necessary. This attempt, however, was thwarted by a federal judge in Louisiana who was hearing a different case brought on by a coalition of Republican attorneys general. They stated that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, did not stop Title 42 using the appropriate procedures, and that they should have evaluated the impact on state healthcare systems as well as other costs. Since then, immigration authorities have continued to enforce the policy for single adults and some families, which has resulted in well over 2 million people being kicked out of the country since Biden became vice president. Thank you for watching.